A very good morning, everyone. This is Harita, and today we would be talking about PeopleSoft HRMS. So, this would be a demo on PeopleSoft HRMS training. So, coming about myself. So I've been working as a PeopleSoft developer for almost 7 years, and I've been working into PeopleSoft HRMS for all the 7 years. And I have worked with IBM. I've started my career in IBM as an application developer for PeopleSoft. Then I moved to Infosys, and I've been working there as a senior associate consultant for PeopleSoft HRMS. So that's my introduction. Then moving on to the scope of this demo, we will be talking about basic concepts of PeopleSoft, and we will discuss about the instances of the PeopleSoft, and then we will talk about the people tools. And basically in people tools, I'll discuss about the phases of our application development, and I will also give a brief introduction about PeopleSoft Internet Architecture. So, moving on to the basic concepts of PeopleSoft. Before we talk about the PeopleSoft, the term everyone should be aware of is ERP. ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning. So, basically, PeopleSoft is considered to be an ERP tool. So, what is ERP? So basically, business process management. It's ERP is a business process management software that manages and integrates organization, finance, supply chain management, commerce, manufacturing, and human resource activities. So few other ERPs are SAP, Salesforce, Oracle Fusion, Workday, JD Edwards, Oracle EBS, etc. So and the PeopleSoft is introduced around in 1985, and it is acquired by Oracle in 2005. So coming on to the instances, actually there will be four instances you will be working with as a developer in PeopleSoft. The first one will be dev, which is the development environment. So this dev environment is basically used for developer testing. You can make any changes you want in the dev environment. All the development will be taken care in dev. Then there comes system integration testing, the SIT environment. So after developing it in the dev, so the SIT system integration testing will be a replica of production environment, but it would not be up to date. So in system integration testing, you will be testing it one more time, and then comes user acceptance testing, where you'll give access to the user who ask you for the risks, who basically had come up you with the requirement. So there, after you testing it in SIT, you'll go to UAT. There the user will test it. If it is fine, then user will give a sign off. Then it is migrated into the final environment, which is prod, which is production environment. So currently, the latest PeopleSoft version is 9.2. After that, Oracle had almost closed releasing any new version. So 9.2 is the latest and existing version, with the People2 version of 8.8.58. And we do have few companies using 9.2, 9.1, and PeopleSoft versions of 8.5 to 5.4 and 5.6. And moving on to PeopleSoft application development phases. Actually, there are four phases of application development, so which we will be discussing now. Basically, as a PeopleSoft developer, you will come across four stages of your development. The first thing is plan, then comes data design, then comes user interface, and then testing. So coming to the planning phase, so basically you will design the application in this phase. So if I say it in a layman terms, suppose the HR of the company will come up with the basic requirements. So you'll just get a document from the HR. So now you'll examine that document is called basically a business requirement. So you'll examine the business requirement and then convert that into the technical requirement. And then the second phase is called data design, where you will create records. First, you'll create fields and then records. So after that, you'll be creating field definitions and you'll combine all the fields to form records. And then you'll build the records, which are also called tables. And the next phase is called user interface. In user interface, you'll create pages and you'll also create components. Multiple pages are grouped and formed components. And then you'll register the components. So after that, you'll create page definitions, you'll create page component definitions, and then you'll set up the user navigation and also you'll set up security. So coming to the last phase, which is the testing phase. In testing phase, you'll test the navigation and security, and also you'll verify whether the navigation is proper as per the requirement. You'll verify the security, and you will enter the data and save it to the database. So these are four different phases how you work in PeopleSoft as a PeopleSoft developer. And so as a developer, we will be seeing the first PeopleSoft web application. It's just an URL which will take you to the front end of a PeopleSoft application. Then comes the application designer and then a database. So these are the three components you have to be dealt with as a PeopleSoft developer. Then moving on to PeopleSoft Internet Architecture. So basically, PeopleSoft application runs on PeopleSoft in the entire PeopleSoft application runs on PeopleSoft Internet Architecture. So this applications, so in PeopleSoft Internet Architecture, first you'll have a basic URL. So you can access that URL and you'll be provided with a password and username and password. You can just log in into that URL, which is the web through web browser. You can use any web browser to log in into that URL. So which is called basically the front end of PeopleSoft. Then comes the app designer. So you'll use the same username and password to log in into the application designer. And then comes a database where the entire data is, you can have a look at database and entire data is maintained and managed. So in PeopleSoft Internet Architecture, we'll discuss about web browser, web server, application server, database server, and batch server. So all these servers work together to distribute the processing as need of the user. That means when you log in into the PeopleSoft system through front end, you'll give some commands. So those commands will work using all these five applications, which are web browser, web server, application server, database server, and batch server. So first what happens is when you log in into the web browser using the URL, after signing in using the username and password, this web browser will go and hit the web server using HTTP or HTML program. So we are not bothered about this. The PeopleSoft admin will take care of all this stuff. So as a developer, it's okay if we get to know the basic concepts of how all these things are interconnected. So when you log in, it will head the web server. So suppose say you log in into the PeopleSoft system and you are searching for some data. So what happens, that command will hit the web server, then the web server will go and hit the application server. So a Jolt and Tuxedo are two or the tools which will help the web server go and hit the application server. So then the application server, what it does is it will go and hit the database using the SQL commands, and it will pick the data from database and then it will send it back to the web server and web server back to the web browser. So that is how you can see the results on your PeopleSoft front end page. So basically, so in this course, we will be dealing with these few of these core structures of PeopleSoft, which are PeopleSoft Internet Architecture, Application Designer, PeopleSoft Security, People Code, Application Engine, Component Interface, Workflow, Process Scheduler, SQR, and Integration Broker. So basically, PeopleSoft can be used for various applications, as I mentioned in the starting of the session, that it can be used for finance, it can be used for manufacturing, it can be used for commerce, and it can be used for human resource management system. So this structure, the basic structure of these components will be same for everything, but the core concepts will be changing if we go deep into each subsection. That means if we go into the PeopleSoft HRMS, we will be dealing with the employee details. If we go to PeopleSoft Finance, and that is basically the finance section of any organization. Suppose say any organization is into selling its products, so all the purchasing terms will be included in finance. Whereas in HRMS, we will be dealing with employee data, the employee data of that organization. So as we already talked, that PeopleSoft Internet Architecture, it runs on PIA, and application server builds any components necessary, any components that are required using the Jolt and Tuxedo rules tools, and then give the data back to the web server. And coming to the application server, app designer. So designer enables developer to create PeopleSoft pages that can be used in web browser. So there is something called a round to a table thing in application designer. So first we will start with field, then multiple fields will comprise a table, and multiple tables will are included in a page. Then after page comes the component, and after component comes the application engine, and after that comes the people code, and then workflow and integration. So this is the cycle of PeopleSoft application, people tools. So moving about on to the PeopleSoft security. Basically, there are four types of security in PeopleSoft. So first is online security, the security of web browser, the front end of PeopleSoft application where we log in. So online security is basically restricting the access to the people. We cannot let everyone access our application, right? So online security is basically the security of web browser. Then comes process security. Process security, actually, multiple people are given access to multiple processes based on their roles and responsibilities. Processes are also given security. So based upon roles, only few people will be able to access certain processes. Then comes query security. So there are some queries which we run in PeopleSoft using SQL. So security is also given to those queries. Then comes lastly people tool security. So even into the application designer, we can't allow everyone to have access. So access will be restricted to maybe developers mainly, and maybe admin sometimes. So this is about PeopleSoft security. Then moving on to application engine. So application engine is a people tool used to carry out background SQL processing. So in application engine, basically we will write commands using SQL and people code, and that is how the processors are run. So people code is just it's a query language which we use in application engine, and even on pages and components, which we can go detail later. And moving on to component interface. So component interface is basically used to load data into PeopleSoft system from a third party. So access will be given to the PeopleSoft application, And so that we use component interface to load data into PeopleSoft sometimes, or to export data from PeopleSoft to a third party system. So next, workflow is so basically workflow will deal with approval processes and authorization of transactions. So for example, there is a manager and there are few employees under him. So whenever an employee submits a resignation, say, it has to go through multiple levels of approvals. Say first manager approves it, and then comes HR. So this is a two level approval process which can be done using workflow. And also, when you consider leave submissions or your sheet submission, everything will be done using this workflow process. So process scheduler, moving on to process scheduler is a place where you run processes, which we will have the navigation from PeopleSoft front end. We can see it later when we have access to the PeopleSoft front end. And moving on to SQR, so SQR is a reporting tool of PeopleSoft. It's called structured query report. So it is a programming language used to create reports. And moving on to integration broker. Integration broker is integrating PeopleSoft system with a third party to transmit and receive the data using web services. Then this is the general course outline. And moving on to add-on topics. So as we are basically dealing with only PeopleSoft HRMS, we will look into ESS, which is called Employee Self-Service. Then MSS is Manager Self-Service, and then core HR, absence, time and labor. These are few modules of PeopleSoft HRMS. So we can give a detailed track of these topics also once we are done with the basic structure. And so additional course resources, we can also provide with few Oracle student material. We can also provide you with interview questions. Then moving on to the projects. So after we are done with all the structure and core concepts of PeopleSoft HRMS, we will give a live demonstration on how to run. We can work on few projects, like how basically applications engines are run. We can take any scenario and we can work on few projects, and we can also try building pages online, and we can have some hands-on exercise and check how it works. And coming to the lab setup, requisites are you need to have high speed internet, and a laptop and or a desktop would suffice. And system requirement should be the Microsoft Windows 7 or above, and your laptop or desktop should have 500 GB hard disk or greater, and memory should be at least 16 GB, and CPU should be a i5 i4 or above. So we will also conduct interviews. We can pass on the interview questions, and we can also conduct the mock-up interviews on basic concepts of PeopleSoft and People Code Application Engine and Component Interface. We can also conduct 1 2 mock interviews for you to have how you deal with PeopleSoft interviews in real world after done with the training. So certifications, yeah, you can do the certifications. Usually PeopleSoft certifications are provided by Oracle. You can just go there and have your certifications online, and give you a certificate of achievement after completion of this program. And that's all for me, and thank you so much for attending this demo. And I request you to share your feedback and contact us for queries related to anything. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and have a good day. Thanks all for attending the demo, and I request you to please share your feedback and contact us for more queries related to the course, references, cost, and any payment options. Thank you so much for your time.